What's going on, guys? Graham, GSM Matthews here with FanSided Daily DDT, and ahead of Halloween Havoc this Tuesday, October 26th, 7 p.m. Eastern Time on USA Network. We're talking a woman of many names, whether it be Indi Hartwell, Indi Lumis, Indi Wrestling, all nonetheless, she is impressive. Indi, how's it going today?
Graham, GSM Matthews. I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing great. Like I just told you before we started recording here, I've been waiting for this one for a while. Obviously, I've known you of your work. We've been following each other for a very long time. We're going back like 10 years. We're going back like 10 years here, Indi. So this is like, I've been waiting for this one.
Yeah, literally 10 years, yeah.
It's been a very long time. And it's not like, I started watching you in the beginning of your career. I'm talking like when you were still a fan. So this is really cool. So we're going to be talking about a variety of topics here today. But, I mean, it's wild to think that even just 5 years ago, when did you start training? Was it 2016?
I started training at the end of 2015.
2015. And then just 6 years later, already in WWE, prominent storylines on NXT, competing for the NXT Women's Tag Team titles tomorrow night as we speak. Is that sunk in for you yet?
Oh, I don't know. Like I have moments where I'm like, wow, I can't believe this is my life. But then I think about, how hard I worked. But yeah, I don't know. It's really, really strange, but obviously really special. And I'm just super grateful to be where I am.
Yeah, it's been a crazy journey. It's been an awesome journey, Indi. But I was telling Mark a couple of weeks ago, we just got done talking to Roman Reigns like 2 weeks ago, but I said to him right after it ended, I said, there's two people, I never make requests. The only two people I wanted were you and Carmelo Hayes, because I've followed him since the beginning of his career, and I've known you since you were a fan. So I'm glad we were able to make it happen here today. On the list of bucket list interviews, and I'm glad it worked out with Halloween Havoc tomorrow night. Like I said, NXT Women's Tag Team title match. But even putting that aside for a second, you just got married on the show, you and Dexter Lumis. How was the wedding? How was the honeymoon?
Honeymoon was great. Obviously, the wedding went down without a hitch, which I don't think a lot of people were expecting. I think that the worst thing to come from that wedding was Dexter choking out the priest. But other than that, everything went well. We had a great bunch of characters on the wedding and, a good bit of comedy. Mm-hmm. So that was cool. Something I'm very proud of, looking back on what I've done the past 2 years while being with WWE. I'm really proud of the wedding. And obviously, you guys all saw the honeymoon. That was funny. That was cool. So yeah, I guess we'll have to see what's next when it comes to Index.
We've seen a lot of wrestling weddings. I don't think I've seen the level of praise for a wedding. The way that I did for your guys is you and Dexter a couple of weeks ago on the show. Because like you said, it went off without a hitch. Not many, if any, interruptions at all. Like, is it cool for you to see that praise for, because when people hear wrestling wedding, it's NXT too, because people kind of expect wrestling. But it was the exact opposite of that. And it ended up being this, fantastic segment and a great culmination to a year-long story. So that's got to be, cool for you too, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think the first thing about it is it's cool to even have a WWE wedding because they don't come around too often. Mm-hmm. So, having a WWE wedding means you're forever etched in history. But then having a wedding that goes off without a hitch, a successful wedding, and, it was such a satisfying, I wouldn't say it's the ending because it's not the end, mm-hmm. But it was such a satisfying, I guess, ending to, the storyline and everything that we did throughout the year. So I'm extremely proud of it.
Yeah, just another chapter in the ongoing story of you and Dexter Lumis. Obviously, again, you're going to be going for the tag team titles tomorrow night, so that's the story. But you go to Halloween Havoc just a year ago. You're competing for the tag titles on Halloween Havoc this year. Last year, we didn't see your face, but we can only assume that you were in the ghost mask helping out Candice LeRae in the women's championship match against Io Shirai. Can you confirm that here a year later or no?
I can confirm that. I think if you put all the pieces together, you would figure that out. I have some cool ring gear for tomorrow's show that's kind of a throwback to what happened last year at Halloween Havoc.
And it was just around that time that you started getting involved with The Way. We kind of saw you in segments with Candice taking you under her wing and Johnny taking you under his wing and then Austin Theory being involved. And it just turned into a great stable on NXT TV. And in those early vignettes, you seem very timid, you seem very shy, and now you're a totally different person on the show. So for you, when did you really start to get that on-air confidence? I'm sure this is who you've been the entire time, but as far as NXT TV goes and being that person on the show, when did it really click for you that you could start being yourself on the show?
Oh yeah, for sure. At the start, I was very scared, very timid. I didn't really know how to be. I was kind of walking on eggshells, being thrust onto TV. It was it was very new to me. But I think each time we filmed those backstage skits and those segments with the way, like the Christmas special and therapy and all that, those segments helped me kind of show more personality and definitely made me more confident. And I think the confidence that I got from those skits translated into the ring and made me just a much more confident performer. And I think obviously with the Dexter storyline, that also helped me show a lot of personality, which I guess a lot of people didn't think that I had, but I always did. I just didn't show it. I think I was too scared. But as the month went on, I got very, very comfortable on TV.
Yeah, those skits helped a lot. I mean, you mentioned it right there. That Christmas skit was amazing. That was where they debuted the indie wrestling nickname for you. That was bestowed upon you by Johnny Gargano, which was awesome. Do you have any one favorite skit that you had with the way you mentioned the therapy one too? There was a lot of good ones. Any one major one stand out for you?
I was thinking about this the other day. I don't know if I can pick a favorite skit with them. I don't know if you saw, but a lot of the times after the NXT shows, we would do like digital exclusive interviews.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yep.
Those ones were really fun because we never had a script and we could just kind of do whatever we wanted. And whenever Johnny is in one of those interviews, he just goes crazy. And I think there was the episode where we had the 8-man tag match, the mixed tag match on NXT when Dexter carried me out to the back, and we did a digital exclusive after that, and it was just like such chaos and it was so fun. It's just like such a good memory that I have from working with The Way.
I mean, you can't find two better people to learn from at this stage of your career than Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae. I mean, obviously they've been involved with wrestling forever now, and you know, as well as NXT specifically. How much did you learn from them? How awesome was that experience over the last year working so closely with them on TV?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think I'd be, the performer that I am today without having Johnny and Candice there, being by my side, whether that's backstage or on live TV. I've just learned so much from being with them and working with them. Just looking at them, having casual conversations where they don't even realize they're teaching me things, but they are. They don't realize because they're just so knowledgeable and so experienced in wrestling because they've been around for a long time. But whenever I'm around them, I try to just soak up as much knowledge as I can.
Yeah, and it's obviously led you to where you are today, competing for the tag titles. Is this a bit of a different Indi Hartwell than we've seen lately? Now that you're teaming with Perisa Pirotta on the show, going for the tag titles tomorrow night, is this a different Indi Hartwell, or is it just kind of a progression of the character, I guess?
I think it's a progression of the character. Definitely having the Index storyline has helped me be a little bit more carefree, and I'm kind of this love-struck girl on TV. But when it comes down to the matches, I'm always turned on for that. I'm always on point.
Do you have any experience with ladder matches? Have you been in one before or no?
I've never been in a ladder match, actually. And the only other match I've had with weapons was the street fight earlier in the year when Candice and I won the tag titles. Mm-hmm. So I'm not experienced at all when it comes to ladder matches.
I mean, if that was the first street fight that you've had, I mean, obviously that was your first in WWE. Was that your first street fight in general, or not really?
Yeah, it was my first street fight ever.
Wow, that's wild. And it was a great effing match, too. That ending with the diving elbow was fantastic. So if that was any indication, then clearly, on Halloween Havoc, it shouldn't be too much of a big deal. Ladder matches can be intimidating, but is there any way that you can prepare for a match like this with so many other great women involved?
I think the best way to prepare for a match like this is to watch some of the great ladder matches from the past. And obviously, you got to get with your teammate and come up with a game plan, because the only person in this match that's experienced with ladder matches is Io Shirai. So I think their team will have the advantage because Io is, genius of the sky.
Yeah. Is there any one ladder match that you can go back and watch on Peacock or the network that really helps you out a lot? Even in recent memory too.
Probably, the one that would suit our match the best is probably the triangle ladder match with the Hardys, the Dudleys, Edge and Christian.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if there's any match to learn from, it would be that one. So,
for sure.
Yeah, most definitely. So it's going to be a great match tomorrow night. And you've had two different partners this year, Persia now and Candice earlier this year, who you mentioned you won the NXT Women's Tag Team titles with back in May. Persia is someone that you have a lot of history with, obviously. You guys go way back to even well before WWE, training in Australia together, right?
Well, we actually never trained together. We are both from different states in Australia, but like with you, I met her on Twitter right when I think it was right after my first match, and she was training at the time. So we kind of became friends from that, and we basically became best friends and, have had parallel journeys up until WWE, and we tagged for a bit on the indies, and now we get to tag together in WWE, which being WWE superstars was both of our dreams. So it's really cool.
I mean, going full circle, I mean, that has to give you guys the advantage, because she's obviously a fresh face on the show right now, only having debuted recently, but she's been around the block. She's been in all these other different promotions and whatnot. You look at the other teams in the match, Io Shirai, Zoe Stark, they're two great competitors, don't get me wrong, but they've only been teaming for a couple of months. Gigi and JC, I'm sure, have only started teaming up in NXT. I don't know if they have any history beyond WWE, so that's got to give you guys the advantage, right?
Yeah, actually, I didn't think about that, but you're right. I think it would, because we're real-life best friends, and we probably have the best chemistry out of all the teams. So, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's crazy. You mentioned that you guys met on Twitter and you started wrestling together from there. How crazy is it? Not just me, but just everyone that has followed you and that has interacted with you. We're not going back like 20 years here. We're going back like 5-6 years to when you were just a fan, now in the business. You've mentioned before going on the record that the Bayley Sasha match from TakeOver Brooklyn, a match that I was there for 6 years ago, is what inspired you to get involved with the business. How crazy of a turnaround is that to see all these people that started watching, or not even just started watching you, but like knew of you through social media, because that would have been such a weird concept like 15-20 years ago.
Oh yeah, for sure. And there's I've got a ton of people on Twitter that I've been friends with, like yourself, from before I started wrestling, when I was a fan. So it's crazy, the power of social media. And as you said, it was only 6 years ago that I was watching the Sasha and Bayley match, and then a few years later I was in NXT myself. So I think that was probably kind of weird for Sasha and Bayley to hear that. Oh my God, we had a match that inspired this girl to start wrestling, and now she's here in NXT. So it's awesome.
It's crazy. It's not even like it's Trish Stratus and Lita, I was inspired by this match from 2003. This was 6 years ago, so that's what's crazy to me about it. And I think, didn't even Sasha tweet out a photo of you guys together, I just met this girl, and she tagged Bayley. She was like, oh, I just met this girl, Indi Hartwell, or Sam, or whatever you're going by at the time, and she was inspired by her match. Isn't that funny? That was just a couple of years ago.
Yeah, that was I think I was a year into wrestling, and I met Sasha at a gym when she was in Australia, and I told her, you're the reason I started wrestling, and she asked to take a photo with me on her phone, and she tweeted that out. That was back when I was Samantha Stratus on Twitter.
That is hilarious, and you can still find the tweet. It's still up too, so the progression is crazy.
Yeah, it is.
I know she shared that photo, or you shared the photo of you and Natalia right after you got signed. It's been a progression of moments. I mean, it was almost exactly 2 years ago that you got signed, right back in early November of 2019?
It was actually, I moved here at the start of September, but I was kind of on the down low until they announced it in November. So it's been about 2 years that I've been here now.
That's crazy. And then seeing you get signed, it's holy shit, I know this person. That's awesome. And then seeing you on Raw 6 months later, it's holy shit, again, I know that person, and she's on Raw you faced Shayna. Was that the match that you had?
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, and you're looking for your revenge. She left you laying at the end of that match, so hopefully at some point we get the progression of that story. But, winning the tag team titles to where you are now, it's absolutely awesome. But in such a short span of time, how can you not get starstruck by some of the people that you get to interact? I mean, Triple H is your boss in NXT. Shawn Michaels is your boss in NXT. Is there any one moment? I mean, obviously you got to keep your composure and keep it professional, obviously, but is there been any one moment of anyone you've interacted with? I mean, Sasha, Bayley, they're your coworkers now, obviously. But beyond that, any one interaction that's really stood out to you so far in your time in NXT?
I think when I first got here, obviously I was pretty starstruck with everyone that I met, but then I had to step back and realize, hey, this is my job, so I have to be professional. But I think if there's one person that I met that I was kind of really starstruck with, it would be Edge. And he actually followed me on Twitter last week, and I was like, oh my God, Edge followed me on Twitter.
That's amazing. That's quite the bucket list item. Going back to the
Yeah.
the Dexter story, which has been such a great part of the NXT product for the last year. And again, not even in NXT 2.0, but like this has been going on for a very long time. Like this is the definition of long-term storytelling. And it's one of those things where like wrestling fans are so weird sometimes with like love stories, and if it's not wrestling or sports oriented, people can kind of get weird with it, which I totally understand. But like your guys' story was so well done and so well timed out with everything you guys did. It wasn't rushed, it wasn't dragged out too far. It was the perfect amount of time. So when you're doing this storyline, is there any like one, romance movie that you look to for inspiration that really like you can relate to with your storyline with Dexter?
There wasn't really any like show or movie that I looked to for inspiration, because I felt like the storyline was so well liked because it was so relatable. It was like the girl chasing after this guy that her parents don't approve of, and everyone's trying to pull her away from him, and no one understands why she's in love with this really creepy guy. But love always prevails. So with a bit of perseverance, it worked out in the end. So I think that's why I didn't really have to look for any inspiration. It was kind of just there.
Yeah, no, it just worked out perfectly. Yeah, like you said, I don't know if there's any one storyline or any one like movie or show you can kind of compare it to, because it's like love meets horror with the way that Dexter is. My buddy was wondering too. You probably saw the tweet a couple days ago. He was asking, does Dexter keep his hatchet on the nightstand before he goes to sleep? I think that was his number one question he wanted to know from you.
I'm not going to give that away.
It can't give away all the tricks of the trade, so smart answer.
Exactly.
It was just a year ago, actually, I spoke to Triple H, and he was talking about the great women's division, and he mentioned you and Jessie Kamea specifically. Like, there's a lot of women in NXT, so when he singled you guys out, I mean, for me specifically, I'm thinking that's fucking cool because I've known you for so long. When you hear stuff like that, you hear that praise from Triple H or Shawn Michaels, what does that say to you as the great job that you're doing? And that was even before you were on TV. So as far as like hearing that praise from him, and how much does that really stick with you?
Yeah, that's crazy, because back then I hadn't really had many opportunities on TV. I think I'd had maybe a handful of matches, but I wasn't really doing anything of note. So hearing that kind of made me really excited, and made me realize, okay, maybe there's plans for me. Maybe there's they've got high hopes for me. So that made me feel really good. And obviously when it's Triple H saying it, that's pretty damn cool.
Yeah, and it was just 2 months later you ended up on the show, so obviously it worked out. But as we wind down here with Halloween Havoc tomorrow, Indi, I know you just watched This Is Us, right, on Netflix?
No, I didn't.
Oh, what was the show that you watched that you tweeted about?
I was watching You.
Oh, You? I get them all mixed up. Okay, you just watched You. That was the show. Do you have any favorite horror movie? I'm not saying that's a horror show, but you're obviously, keeping up to date on the shows that are coming out and whatever. Any favorite horror movie as we go on Halloween Havoc?
Last night I was watching Scream. I think Scream is an iconic horror franchise. That's one of the best of all time. I really like the movie Sinister 2.
Okay.
I think people overlook that one. That's a good one. And obviously all the classics like Halloween and Nightmare on Elm Street and Chucky, who's the host of the show tomorrow.
Yep.
So,
that is crazy.
There's a bunch.
Did you see Halloween Kills? It's on Peacock.
I have not yet, but I'm planning to this week. I've been really busy, but I've heard a lot of mixed things about it.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch the first one, if you watched the last one a couple of years ago, it definitely is the mixed bag of a movie. But if you watch the last one, you got to watch this one. There's another one coming out next year, so it's kind of like mandatory viewing. Well, when you get the time, of course, because you're busy. But that's awesome. Yeah. So we got Halloween Havoc tomorrow night. Really looking forward to it. We discussed this last year over Twitter, and I got to ask again, Indi, do you still have your Matt Hardy Stronger Than Death wristband? Because I'm looking for another one, and I will buy it off of you if I have to.
You know what? I'm almost certain I do still have it. It would be back in my bedroom in Australia at my parents' house in like the side table. I'm sure it's there, and hopefully if I get to go back for Christmas this year or next year, I'll have a look and maybe I'll gift it to you. I
was going to say, gift it to me, that'd be awesome. Hey, I would be willing to pay top dollar to get that thing. I had mine for almost 10 years, and it broke just last year, and I was so pissed. But it's a far ways away in Australia, like you said, so maybe when you go back for Christmas, we'll discuss at a later point, but I look forward to that. But like I said, Halloween Havoc tomorrow night before then, October 26th, Tuesday, 8 p.m., 7 p.m. Eastern Time, USA Network. It's going to be great. You, Indi, Perisa Pirotta, Io Shirai, and Zoe Stark against Toxic Attraction NXT Women's Tag Team titles. Indi, like I said, this has been a lot of fun. Thanks so much for the time. I've been looking forward to this for a while, and it definitely delivered, so I appreciate it for the time.
Yeah, thank you. It was awesome to talk to you.
Thanks, Indi. Congrats again on all the success, and hope I can catch you at some point down the road.
Thanks, Graham.